Mark, welcome to the High Caliber Men podcast.
Thanks for inviting me on.
Cool. And actually, I'll start with a thank you for me coming on your podcast. I'll make sure the link's in the description for anyone who wants to go and watch that one. Talking all things work performance, really, wasn't it? It was like daily performance, work performance, mentality, mindset, all that sort of stuff. So I'll put the link in the description for that. However, the reason why I've invited you on is because I wanted someone to come onto the podcast that can talk about finances, career, traditional success to a degree, all right? And from what little I know about you, obviously we'll learn a little bit more about you today. What little I know about you, you've achieved the traditional success. So I want to get into, and I always start the podcast with the juiciest question on the edge of people's lips, which is, for yourself, how many houses have you sold to date? And or, let me rephrase actually, how many houses have you sold in a year, which is your best year?
So last year was our best year, and we sold 158 houses.
And that won you, is it the number one agent globally for units sold?
Yeah, so number one agent globally as part of EXP. So we operate in 24 countries. So that's outside of US and Canada, that award.
Do you know what numbers they're doing, just out of curiosity?
I'm not sure. It's not something I've actually looked at.
No.
But I know it might actually be as much as what I've done, but it's all done separately. So that you've got the US and Canada, and then the rest of the world as part of the international agents.
And how many? So within EXP, how many agents are there? Do you know?
90,000.
No way! I didn't know there was that many.
Yeah.
So out of 90,000, you're number one.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy, especially given that we live in a small kind of coastal town, and number one in the world.
I love that. Because I always view Cumbria as 10 years behind everywhere else.
Yeah.
We're all at a disadvantage to a degree. And, little old Mark from Cumbria, he's smashed 90,000 people and you're number one globally in EXP. That's class.
Even if you look at just EXP in the UK, and for anyone that doesn't know, EXP just provide the tools to run an estate agency as a self-employed model. So just in the UK, I think we've now got over 500 agents, but obviously they're all around the country in like London and things like that. And I always think it's a bit mind-blowing that I'm still top of all of those people.
And you've won that twice, haven't you?
We've won it twice. So we won it in our second year that we were trading, and then just this last year. So last year was 23, and we won it in 21 as well.
Class.
Which is phenomenal. So in 21, we did 130 properties, I think. So
class.
And then 158 last year.
Class. Awesome. Before we actually get into it, I'm going to shut that window because no doubt we'll get some noise from cars. And that little hum does me heady. So, you sold 158. What's that equate to financially?
So financial last year, including kind of that, because I just look at the top line that goes into the bank. I don't fully break it down massively. So that was about 350 grand last year.
350 in a year. That's class.
So when I started, so I've been a estate agent now for 10 years, and before starting my own business with EXP, we were part of Purple Bricks, and back then the best year I had was 55 grand in a year, which I thought was really good if you look at the average income in this area. But it's not till I left, and then you look at obviously running costs, which weren't massive, but you've still got running costs, the hours that I worked, and then if you broke it down that way, it was actually less than minimum wage.
Wow. So you earned 55 grand per hour, it was less than minimum wage.
Yeah.
I guess it goes to show how the actual kind of top line can be not what it seems almost, I guess, isn't it? So moving into kind of monthly then, out of that, or even yearly, out of that 350 top line, how much of that was yours? How much could you take out of it?
So we between me and Julie, because obviously Julie works with me, so we take officially about 90 grand out of that a year. and that covers obviously all our bills and stuff like that. But then on top of that, we've got business trips, all sorts of stuff like that. But yeah, because top line is really good. We've got running costs, we've got staff to pay. So you break that down, but it's still like a phenomenal income from where we were.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be a good time to mention at this point, the nature of this conversation is going to be finances. Also, we were talking before we started about the traditional version of success. And we were talking about like people's view on it. And I really wanted to get across that a lot of people view money as a bad thing, from my perspective anyway. Not that that's my view on it, but a lot of people, I think a lot of people think that. And then that this nature of this isn't to boast or have an ego rub or anything like that. It's simply to share your story of being down in the dumps, let's say, to where you've got now, and we'll discuss pretty much the in-between of what it takes to get there. Does money bring you happiness? Is that just a phrase that gets thrown out which isn't accurate? Obviously, you've kind of been at both ends of the spectrum. And we'll get into all that side of things. So yeah, just a point to make in terms of anyone watching, that it isn't necessarily an ego rub at all. It's more of a, let's see what it takes to get to where you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you're fucking grafted. I know how much you graft. There's not many people I meet in my life that matches my work ethic, and you do surpass it. Hands up, you work a lot harder than me. So I actually want to go right back to down in the dumps.
Yeah.
Before we were talking, before we started the podcast, you were talking about time you had loads of debt and you were drinking rancid coffee and all this sort of stuff. So let's go back to there. Like, what was life like there? Tell me about that time.
So I went to uni, and then I left in my final year due to like family issues that caused me to fall behind, and then I could never actually afford to go back, even though that I had mitigating circumstances. I could go back without paying the tuition fees again. But I left. I had like loads of debt, credit card debt, and like obviously student loans and stuff like that. We had Jack, who was our eldest. He was a baby at that point. Obviously, when I initially left, I had no income. And then it got to the point where we couldn't really afford to eat. I weighed 7.5 stone at one point. So obviously I was dead skinny. And life was like really hard. And then obviously I got a job and stuff like that, but the one job was never enough. So since like Jack's 21 this year, and apart from obviously the last few years since starting this business, I've always had 2 jobs. So I'd always like start work at 9 o'clock in the morning, finish at 5, and then start another job pretty much back to back with that, work till 11. So I worked for the council, then finish at 5, then delivered Chinese food for like 5 years, up until like 11 o'clock, 6 days a week.
And this is at the time when you were struggling as well?
Yeah, this is at the time when we had no money. So it was just enough to kind of
get by,
cover things, yeah. And like we could maybe have, I don't know, maybe like 1 takeaway a week, or like some slight luxury, but still, and that come after obviously the 7.5 stone and not being able to eat. But yeah, for years it was always that struggle. So even like just changing jobs, I always was looking for different jobs to try and different opportunities to try and kind of create like the life that I wanted. So I'd look for better paid jobs. And I always had some form of like side hustle. And yeah, it was just constant grind and constant graft. And then it was even like when I started in the estate agency like 10 years ago, I managed to get 3 pay rises in a year because I was really good at what I did. But I took a £6,000 a year pay cut to do that because I really wanted to do it. And I hated what I was doing at the time. But then I still did 2 jobs or some form of like side business that I did.
Yeah, cool.
And then it's not until like these last few years I haven't time to do another job. But that work ethic that I've had from all those years just to kind of survive has kind of helped to grow this like business that I never thought we'd get to where we are now.
Class. So basically finished uni, loads of debt, new baby, struggling to get, or just getting by, working all the hours under the sun. That was how long ago? 20 years ago?
It was 20 years ago, yeah, back in 2004.
At that point, kind of, let's move the jobs to the side for a second. Outside of work, which obviously wasn't much time, what was life like? What was like I know you mentioned I know you mentioned you were 7.5 stone struggling to eat. What was mindset like then? What was mental health like?
It was shit. So basically, I felt like I had to work non-stop just to kind of survive. So there'd be times when, and I can like vividly remember, and even not at that point, but years later, I'd be like, I want to do something. I want to like see mates or play like a computer game or something like that. I'm like, I can't because I've got to do this because I need to do that. Otherwise, we're not going to have enough money for whatever else we need stuff for. So life was really hard, and it was one of them things where whenever you go shopping, I'd get to the checkout, and sometimes I'd even calculate what I'd spent as I was walking around the shop, and then I'd have to like start transferring money between, like, I used to have different accounts to try and help manage kind of money, and then I'd realise, shit, I've spent too much, and it transfer a few extra quid from one account to another, and it was just, I don't know, it was just really stressful. And I guess like a lot of people go through that, so it's not probably an isolated thing for us, but it was really hard, and that lasted for years. And then even as life kind of improved a little bit, and we maybe like could afford to go on holiday, you go on holiday and it's the exact same things, like we need to go for a meal, but we can't really afford that. And it's like trying to say no to the kids, and as a result, I probably didn't say no to the kids and just put it on the credit card and racked up all that debt. So
how much debt are we talking? Like around about prox?
Probably overall over the like last few years, because when I left uni, I had no money to pay for anything, so I had to default on all my credit cards, and that was like about £7,000 plus £16,000 student loan, and then I built it back up again, which I said I would never do. But then when you've got no money and stuff, so I think we're up to about like £16,000 extra on cards and stuff like that. But it's I think that's just kind of part of life, that I've always, like, I'm really good at spending money, and it's because I suppose I've got these kind of ideas of what I want kind of life to be like, and it's always that struggle. But then obviously you get into that spiral where you've got no money, and you're putting stuff on credit cards because you can, and you can just pay it off monthly and stuff like that. But then it means that like all your money's taken up just by paying your bills. And it's not a very nice place to kind of be in. So
you're kind of job hopping a little, and or always looking for new jobs. When did the second child come along?
2007.
So Jack was like 20 years ago. This is then what time? 2007. So what's that?
Yes, that was obviously it's only a few years later. 4 years later.
So you've got 2 kids. What job are you doing at that time? Are you still struggling, I presume? There's no doubt an extra child's just put extra pressure on.
Yeah, because I've told the kids none of them are planned. So we've got 3, none of them are planned. Not that we regret any of them, but it wasn't like, I know like some people get to like probably my age now and then plan to actively have kids. We didn't do any of that.
And how old are you?
43. And that's a good thing, really, because it means that like I've had loads of energy to spend time with the kids and play with them and stuff. And now, like, me and Julie have got a bit of our life back rather than start, because I see folk having kids at my age now, and I couldn't imagine all them sleepless nights and stuff like that. That would drive me nuts. What the question was before that now, though.
Well, the second child came along,
so at that point, I think I was working for the council. So I worked there for like 8 years. I think I had about 5 different job titles, which essentially, for the most part, was all the same job, which I basically worked for the county council promoting waste education. So like trying to help folk recycle and stuff like that.
Pretty boring then.
Well, it was all right, because I used to go to schools and give presentations and play with the kids and do games and stuff like that. So that part was all right. But I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do, because I know like other folk that did it, they were really like environmentally conscious, because they'd done like environment degrees and stuff, whereas I'd kind of just fell into it because it was a job. And the first like title was Recycling Ranger. And I went home and I said to Julie, I said, I'm going to get this job and I don't want it. It's a crap title. I got the job. And I was like 8 years later. So I went through different iterations of the thing. And I think it was Community Sustainability Officer was my final title before I left. And then I went to Home Group because it was similar kind of.
Home Group, were you working for them?
Worked for them for 3 years. And it was a similar kind of skills, different kind of thing, but it was similar kind of skills that you needed. But that was awful. Not the company, but just the job itself. It was just a really negative job. You were dealing with like rentiers all the time, and one of my clients had 3 hysterectomies as a way of not paying the rent. That was her. I can't think of the word.
Kind of weird to get out of it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I've had this. Hang on, you had one of those a few months ago. How many can you have?
Yeah.
So stuff like that, and it was just really negative, and people complaining all the time. And as a result, I suffered from depression and stuff like that. But yeah, that was awful.
Cool. Let's jump into that then. The depression side of things, mindset. Obviously, you've struggled on for a while. I'm not surprised you ended up with depression and suffering from that. So, what about that time in your life? Like, how did that play a part in your life in terms of how did that depression show up?
I used to drive to work. I worked in Whitehaven, and you get to Pelican Garage, then you start going down the hill, and that's when my heart sank every day. It's like, oh, I've got to go through this again. The only thing that made it bearable really was the folk that I worked with, because they were amazing. The folk that I worked with were really good, and that made it enjoyable to an extent because we had a laugh. Yeah, it was just that the dealing with stuff, and I think as a result, that's when I probably started drinking more, because I'd go home, and that was my way to kind of de-stress. I'd be like, right, go home, have a few beers, chill out, relax. But then that lasted longer than the time that I worked there. So I got into that routine where you just kind of drink of a night and stuff like that. And then you don't realise how much that affects you in such a negative way until you remove it, and you're like, this cloud kind of lifts. Yeah. So as a result, I hadn't drank for like 5.5 years now.
Class, yeah.
Because I got to that point where I was like, I've had enough. But yeah, it was just really negative. At the time, I didn't do much training. I'd like go in and out of training. I wasn't motivated to do much. I still worked 2 jobs. I'd work over a weekend in a bar, but I'd go and get smashed when I was at finished work, and like get home at like 4 a.m. And so that was again, it was my like kind of release of this shit life that we had. And that, like, not so much that release, but the working behind the bar, I really liked. I've done it for years on and off in different places. But yeah, I realised, so when I was there, I spent a year applying for jobs for estate agents because I knew that's what I wanted to do. Where
did that come from?
Do you know, I remember, so I used to do Clean Easy years ago where you deliver like the catalogues through folks' doors. And I was in Disenton, and I saw a for sale board. I can't remember what company it was. I was like, I'd really fancy doing that. I could show folk around houses. And I don't know if that just stuck with us, but I think ultimately it was because the part of the job with Home Group that I enjoyed was kind of getting people houses. And it was like handing the keys over to these like this young couple or a family that had been struggling to find somewhere. And that was the positive part of the job. And I really liked that. So I thought, well, that's the part that I like. So why not focus on doing that all the time? Rather than chasing like rent arrears and folk complaining that the boiler's not been working for 3 weeks and not spending about it. So I applied for a few jobs in different companies. I'm just going to put my notifications off on this.
Never not working, eh, lad?
No, my phone's on Do Not Disturb, but not me watch. How do I do this? Do you know what? I'm just going to take it off.
Cool.
What was saying? Yes. So the positive part of that job, I was like, right, I really want to do that, and I applied for a few different. The roles in the estate agency don't come up very often, so I applied for a few. Never got the kind of job, and the downside was it's a massive pay cut because it's not very well paid, especially if you're just like a negotiator. It's often on like 15 grand a year, or at least it was. So then it was that balance of leaving a job that I kind of hated, but then losing money that we needed because I was working 2 jobs. And so I finally got like offered a job, and it was initially going to be an 8 grand pay cut, and I was like, I can't do it. And then it was they said, oh well, we can give like an extra couple of grand, and I thought I'd struggle with that, and I was like, I just need to get out of it. So from my own mental health, that's why I kind of changed, and I was like, I'll make it work. I'll find another job of a night to do. But then in that first year, I was that good at it. I got 3 pay rises. So I went from, in the space of 12 months, from I think it was 18 grand a year up until 22, something like that, plus some commission, which the commission was a bit crap. So it was still less than I was on previously, but it wasn't far off. And then I still had that with a job of a night.
I presume while you're out grafting and swapping jobs every week, Julie's at home looking after the kids. Is that
so Julie did work, so it wasn't just a case of she sat at home. So she'd do like cleaning jobs and stuff like that. But for the most part, it was kind of looking after the kids, or like, because like I said, we did kind of cleaning easy for years, so she'd help with that and different things. So, but quite often her income, even up until we started our business, her income was more extra money to spend on the kids.
Aye.
So to buy them like the clothes that they need and stuff like that. So it was always just like a part-time additional income.
Cool. Going back to the drink thing for a second, obviously I've had my struggles with drink. Recently gave it up. I was going to do 12 months, done 4.5, and I learnt my lesson. What was the tipping point for you to say enough's enough?
I don't know if there was a specific thing, but I think over time, I just felt like I kind of fell out of love with it, because I realised I was drinking too much, I was drinking too often, and I had this little voice in my head saying, I'm not going to drink today. And it was that kind of thing and then when I did drink, or I maybe wouldn't, but I would the next day, then I realised, like, I wouldn't say like I was an alcoholic, but I definitely realised I had like an issue, because I was just drinking too much, too often, and it wasn't every day, but it felt like it was taking more kind of control of my life, and I was sick of feeling shit. And then I got to the point where I was like, well, I'll just buy 4 cans of lager, and then that's all I've got. So that's all I'm going to drink. The shop is literally 2 minutes walk down the road. So I'd drink then I'd walk down. Everyone else would be in bed. I'd be sitting up till like midnight, drinking pints of Stella, and then getting up at 7 a.m, probably not feeling that like rough, because that's just how I felt all the time. It wasn't just a case of like, that's it, I'm stopping. It took probably like 2 years to stop drinking, because I'd be like, right, I'm going to have a break, and maybe it'd last 2 weeks, and then I'd drink, and then it'd be back into that same cycle. And I did like 70 days ish. That was about the time that I started working at Purple Bricks. And part of that, you're away for 2 weeks, and like they're all getting shit faced.
Aye.
And for the first week, I didn't drink. The second week, can't remember what happened, but I ended up getting like involved in it, and then I kind of got back into that same routine again. And I did that for a while, and then it's that in the back of my mind, it's like, I don't want to be doing this. It's just constantly kind of nagging us that I'm doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And then I signed up to 1 year no beer as a challenge, and like, you had to pay for it. And at the time, I couldn't afford it. I was like, you know what? I can't afford to drink either. So I signed up for that as a challenge. I'm like, right, I'm going to take a year off. And I didn't actually think I'd do it. And I did, because you were part of this kind of community.
Yeah, cool.
And then I got to the end of the year, I was like, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do a year was that I got to experience pretty much every part of life. So I went through birthdays, Christmas, holidays, all that stuff without alcohol. And even now, like, my brother-in-law is the worst for it. She was always like, oh, well, we need fun, Mark, let's just have a drink. And like, that's 5.5 years, like, into it.
Still getting comments like that?
Oh, yeah, still like that.
It's good to know that, because like it's making me question my decision to not see out the full year. And my circumstances changed, and I kind of thought, you know what, I can do a year. And it was almost like, because I knew I could, almost didn't have to.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I didn't do it, so could I? And it's interesting to know that even like those comments almost just never stop.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, have a drink from other people, like obviously me dealing with fat loss clients and things, it's always like, have a pizza, have a burger.
Yeah.
And it's good to know that even though people clearly know you don't drink, you're not a drinker, but you still get those comments
all the time, especially from Stu. Stu's the worst. I think it's probably because like he's kind of like my little brother that I never had, because it's my youngest brother-in-law, and we've been out with nights out with just me and him and stuff like that. And we've had like loads of fun dancing on tables and stuff. So he remembers that part.
Aye.
And then obviously because now like I don't drink, so I'm not as like stupid. But yeah, even now, so like this weekend gone, still had them comments.
Wow.
And like years ago, so I remember the first holiday, it wasn't Stu, it was someone else, but first holiday, it was like, oh no, you need to have a drink and stuff like that. And it's hard to then stick to like your plan when people are like badgering you.
Yeah.
And you can see how easy it is before to cave, whether it's alcohol, food or whatever. But I think the pain that I'd gone through of that self-talk of like, I'm drinking when I'm not, I've told myself I'm not going and stuff like that. Because I'd gone through that and I'd got to like, I don't know, maybe a few months in before we went on our first holiday. It was hard because like for me, holidays were like, you start drinking at 10 o'clock.
Associated with alcohol, aren't they? Yeah. Getting peace, lasers around the pool, that type of thing.
Yeah, just drinking all day. And so for the first holiday in like I was going to say my entire adult life. So since I was probably like 16 or something like that, there was no drink. So that was a hard thing to kind of get through. And then obviously you've got people like trying to encourage you to drink. But because I'd gone through this thing and like I was sick of feeling shit.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm not drinking. And then I got to the end of that first year and I could have then like, right, well, I've had that year, I'll start drinking. But even now, my worry is I'd have a few beers and it wouldn't take long to get back into the cycle that I was in. And
it was my next question, actually. Why don't you have a drink?
Yeah.
Is that
that is why? Yeah. It's the fear that, like, I wouldn't have the life I've got now if I drank, 100%, because I wouldn't work as hard, because I'd get to the point where I can't be arsed, I'm having a beer. Yeah. And then I wouldn't work, because I'd be like, I'd have two, and it just wouldn't work. So we financially and the lifestyle would be totally different.
Yeah.
And it's that fear that if I just said, oh, well, I'll have a drink this weekend, I've broke that kind of run of like that time, and like, oh well, I'll just have some of the weekend, and then the weekend becomes like a couple of nights of the week. And I don't want to get into it. I mean, there's obviously the health reasons. The cost isn't an issue now, so that's probably another reason why I stopped drinking, because of the cost of it. Same reason why I stopped smoking like 20 odd years ago.
I was in a similar position in regards to that kind of, I want to stop drinking, and I know drinking is going to stop drinking is going to benefit us, but kind of find myself always drinking still. And you said like, oh, I wasn't an alcoholic. And I think a lot of people view alcoholics as dependent on it, and or just they need a drink first thing in the morning. My actual kind of view on being an alcoholic is that what you almost said. And I find myself in that same position, which is you consciously can sit there and say, I want to stop drinking, but you subconsciously end up keep on drinking drinking, and you find yourself in a situation, then you do have a drink, even though you said you were going to stop. And at that point, you've really got to raise the question of, well, are you dependent on it? You know what I mean? And for me, I know I certainly was, because I wasn't waking up and drinking in the morning, unless I was topping up from last night, because I was more of a binge drinker. You were obviously a daily drinker, evening drinker. I was a binge drinker. But I really look at that as, if you consciously want to stop and you don't, then
that's when you know it's an issue.
And I think it's important to accept it's an issue, firstly, and admit it to yourself. I think that's the first step in starting to come off it, really, and dwindling it out. And I totally get what you're saying with it really doesn't play a part in your life anymore. Because one of my biggest reasons for initially saying I'm going to go 12 months, 12 months sober, and that was at the time of meeting a lass as well. Like just like my missus, I originally met her and I was like, "Hey, listen, I'm going to be staying off booze," and she likes a glass of wine, and it certainly didn't impact the relationship. But I did actually think, is it gonna? Because it is such a inbred with our society, isn't it?
It's that social thing. So basically, like alcohol, we use it to celebrate, commiserate, anything, any excuse.
Yeah. If you're happy,
part
drink. If you're sad, drink.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
totally.
it's sunny, drink. Oh,
Yeah.
sun's gone in. Let's drink anyway.
Yeah.
But any reason, and so I don't know if it's worldwide, but definitely in the UK, it's definitely part of our culture. And in this area, because there's not much else to do.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we've kind of got involved in. But I mean, Julie drinks, and that doesn't bother me. But I still drink, even like this length of time, non-alcoholic lager. I drink probably quite a lot of that. And I suppose that, and for me, it's dead refreshing, and I like it. And it shows me that I don't need to drink for that social part, because I can go out and stuff. The part that I don't have, and I probably drank, like I've realised this as I think about things over time, the initial reason why I drank so much anyway was because I'm an introvert, and we'd go out like with mates and not know what to say to folks, or I'd just drink and then I'd get pissed and then I'd be absolutely daft. Yeah.
It's interesting that as well, and I think alcohol does give you that confidence. It does kind of let your guard down. It does de-stress you, and until I stopped drinking, I didn't show it the respect it deserves until I stopped, and because it does tick a lot of boxes. In terms of, if you want to be a bit more confident, have a drink. If you're having a good time, a drink often will make that a little bit better time, and all these different other things. But what would you say to anyone who is potentially thinking about giving it up, well, even before we get to that question, what did you learn in your own personal growth from giving up? Because you mentioned you go through the full experience of Christmas and summer holidays and all that. Like, how important was that for not necessarily getting out of your shell, but your own personal growth?
Yeah. So I think that having that year off, so you experience you can pretty much experience most things in a year.
Yeah.
And like, then you realise like, alcohol, it's not kind of what you kind of thought it was. And I think like it gives me time to kind of think a bit clearer. Then you can start focusing on other stuff. So like while I was drinking quite a lot, I wasn't training. I maybe would train, but not very well, not consistently. So you can start focusing on like your health more. And you've got this period of like about 3 weeks after stopping drinking that suddenly you kind of feel totally different. And like, shit, I didn't realize how bad that I felt. And just that, and like, if you look at like the film Limitless with Bradley Cooper, where he's taking them drugs, and it's not quite, but it's almost like that, where it's like as though you've taken something to like improve your life.
You experience life a lot better, don't you?
And it's quite hard to get across to people that do like hard drinking, because they're probably like, oh, don't be daft, and like, it doesn't affect me. But even like drinking small amounts, they won't realise that
how much.
Because ultimately it's a depressant. So over that like first year, it was like as I was treating it a challenge. But I think like if anybody was thinking of taking like that time out, like for me, I'd done it. I'd attempted it loads, and it wasn't until I joined 1 year and over year. So I think it's having that community of other people that are going through the same thing at the same time, so that you can, I suppose, have a crack about like where you are and stuff like that. I think if you try to do it on your own, and obviously you don't have to be raging alcoholic or anything like that, but if you just try to break that cycle that you might have found yourself in, trying to do it on your own is really hard, because then you get them voices from either in your head or externally.
Internally or externally.
Have a drink and you're like, oh, go on then. And then it's dead hard to get back into, because then you'll maybe drink for another period and be like, right, now I need to start again. But having that kind of community is what kind of
supporting it. I can't agree more with the point of you said you weren't you wouldn't be in this position you're in now if you'd still drink. And I can't agree more with that type of point there, because I know for me, one of the reasons why I decided to initially go 12 months was because it was the only single thing in my life that made me a worse version of myself, and it held me back in training, in business, in my own personal growth. It was the only thing that, like I said, made me a worse version of myself. And I think also making a clear point of, as you said, people don't realize how much it affects them until they stop, and how bad they feel until they realize they're feeling really good. I see this all the time with clients. People, I know for a fact, like I've worked with thousands of the people of the general public, and it's probably why I'm quite opinionated on society, because I've had a very good insight to working with average, normal, societal people, right? And I think most people are walking around feeling awful, and they don't know. They don't know they're feeling awful. They don't know they're exhausted. They don't know that they've got constant brain fog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And obviously, the work we've done together, it's clear that when you start improving it, you realise how bad you were in the past.
And that's it. You need that change to happen to realise that there was something not right. It's dead interesting, and that, I suppose, like, that's another reason why I wouldn't go back to drinking. Because if I did slip back into old habits, which I think I would, it's all like the benefits of not drinking far outweigh any benefits at all that you get from drinking. And it's like with Jack, I think I've rubbed my thoughts on alcohol, and obviously I've got quite a negative view on alcohol nowadays, but I think I've rubbed that on him. And like I was saying to Julie, we were having this conversation the other week, I don't regret anything I've done in my life, like any drinking, like that, because it's made me who I am, and I've experienced that, and I actually don't want my past experiences to where I've got to now to impact the kids, because I want them to experience it for themselves.
Yeah, good.
So then make their own decisions. And I think Jack, because like I'm probably quite anti-alcohol, Jack kind of is, and I think that's having, because he's very like me, he's not very outgoing or anything like that, and I think initially drinking would probably improve his life a little bit, because he'd socialise more and stuff like that, and especially as you get older, where you like, obviously I've got a workload, I've got like the wife, kids, I don't have that loads of time for like socialising because of the age, like friends have got their own lives and stuff. So you don't you're not going out every weekend and stuff like that. So I'm at that point now where alcohol doesn't need to be part of my life at all.
Cool. Let's get back to then, after that big tangent there.
I think
it was worth talking about for sure. Because he has played a big part in your journey, hasn't it, really?
For the last, to where we are now, as I say, I wouldn't have got here if I'd had been drinking. That said, I know loads of successful folk that do drink alcohol.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's I suppose it's just how the person really. But I
in a kind of conclusion to this tangent, I think what I learned from the 4.5 months off, it's not the alcohol that's the problem. It's your relationship with it and how you can control it, or whether it controls you. You know what I mean? And I think that's very, very important. But getting back to your work ethic, where does it come from? Why do you work so hard? Because I know, obviously, since we've been working together, it's been a little challenge of me to get the positives and the benefits of your work ethic and turn that into yourself, and put that effort and energy and work ethic into yourself, which you've obviously done it before we started working together, but still there's some drawbacks we're seeing with how much you do work. But at the end of the day, it's great that you've got that work ethic, but where does that come from? Why do you have this, as soon as I wake up till the minute I go to bed, work?
I think it's twofold. One, because it's coming from lack of having nothing, so having to do what I needed to do to provide for my family. So there's that part of it, but also from my dad. So my dad, he was a self-employed paper and decorator for as long as I could remember. So he'd get up, he'd leave the house at 8 in the morning, he'd get home at 8 at night. So he'd do 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. Then he'd probably work on like a Saturday as well. So he worked non-stop. So I saw that, and I saw that also the life that we had. We had like growing up, we had a decent life. We had a nice house, he had a nice car, and used to go on nice holidays. So I think from that, and I've always had I've always wanted like a really good lifestyle. So I always wanted to be a millionaire, even from like a kid. And one of the last things I remember my dad saying, he said, "Oh, you'll be a millionaire one day."
Are you a millionaire?
No,
Not yet.
not yet. Not yet. I have got a goal. So I've got a goal to earn £1 million a year by the time I'm 50. So I've got 7 years, and I reckon I should do that before then. But it obviously comes with the hard work. So it's not as though like, because it sounds like a lot, but when you look at like a lot of people get that to that point because they win the lottery or something like that, but the grind and stuff over years. So I think that's where it comes from, that they're having nothing to having to do like workloads just to survive. And then obviously seeing what my dad did, but then especially with having nothing and working like constantly just to kind of keep a roof over our heads and stuff like that, that's probably put us in really good stead for where we are now, because I've put all that same amount of effort in and got to the point where I don't need to work that hard just to pay bills. But it's the excitement of like, look what we've kind of created over these last we're almost 4 years into it. So it was August 2020 that we started. Officially, it was like 1st of September because that's like our anniversary date, but it was like mid-August. So we're nearly 4 years into it, and I still work now for probably actually more than I did at the start. And I think one of the things when we started getting business, and I wanted to kind of create like a momentum. And it probably was, I was thinking about this morning, that it was probably at the time, it was like pushing a big snowball up the hill. And I didn't want to take any time off. I didn't want to take any breaks. Whereas like Andrew, I work alongside, he'd take like chunks of time off, but then his business would dwindle and then like panic and work hard. And I was like, I don't want to be like that. I just want to create momentum, constantly work hard, keep pushing that snowball up the hill. And now it's gone the other side and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I can't stop it. Which is a really good place to be in, because like I don't have to work hard to get business, because we've put all that foundation in up to this point, and it was just basically trying to create that momentum and not taking our foot off the gas. And one of the reasons was because after COVID, the market went really like nuts after a little while, and so there was loads of people looking for properties. So I was thinking, well, the market's dead busy. We'll work as hard as we can now, because the market will go quiet and then we won't have much business, so make the most of it. And like we're nearly 4 years in. There's been slight peaks and troughs over these last like 4 years, but for the most part, the market's still dead busy, and we haven't got that break that I thought we would get. So, and now it's got to that point where I'm like, how do we kind of manage what we've this monster we've created? Really, it's created another problem. And I always say that like I'm probably too busy.
Yeah,
but I'd rather complain that I'm too busy than not busy enough.
You better have problems of, I can't sell this many houses with only 2 pairs of hands, compared to I can't afford my shopping.
Yeah.
And I think another point to make here is that a phrase I heard one time, which I thought was really good, is new levels, new devils. And when you've got nothing, you've got problems and issues and devils there. And even when you're earning shitloads, you've got problems and issues and devils there. And it kind of, well, I guess the question is, you can answer it, is, does it get easier? Is this difficult easier than the previous difficult of not having much?
I'd much rather be where I am now than where I was. Otherwise, I'd be like, why have I done this? It's definitely different problems, but I think no matter where you are in life, there's always going to be some issues, and it's just what those issues are vary. But I'd much rather, like, I remember where we were of struggling and having nothing and debt and stuff like that, and stressing out about money, to being at this point where I'm just like trying to manage workload and stuff like that. And it's a different stress, but if I look back, this is much more relaxed than it was, even though like I work non-stop.
Let's go in the middle then. So obviously, you're traditionally successful at the moment, you've had nothing there. Why not stay in the middle where you've got a bit of money and the workload's all right and you can afford to live and go on a holiday and do that? Why not stop there and be almost, to a degree, comfortable?
It's not who I am. I think basically I've always wanted I don't know. I've always been really ambitious and really driven, and I think I find it hard to turn business away. But then, and I could, and I know there's other folks. So Andrew's probably got that middle ground where I know he's dead busy because he does everything on his own. Whereas obviously I've got a team. Obviously, his business doesn't bring in as much money, but he's got less overheads, and probably is that right kind of level. I don't know. I think because the business kind of keeps going, I've got two options. I either turn it away or we grow. So we've been really fortunate. We were able to rebrand, bring on team members. So rather than push business away, I've now got that opportunity to bring in other folk that can help them change their lives. So like Ashley, my niece, she's been working with us now for I think probably about 18 months. And she started as like my first partner agent back in October, and now like obviously the business I've built up is now benefiting her, and I can see how that's kind of changing her life now.
Good.
So I think that's where I am. Where rather than just sitting in that middle lane, I'm now focusing on helping other folk.
Class. Good. Let's go to the time that I started hearing about you, and I say hearing about you. Obviously, we talked about this before we started. But I've always had this thing of anyone who's made something of themselves and they're a bit of a somebody, they always get referred to as their full name. So I heard about this Mark Buchanan. It wasn't this Mark guy who sells houses. It was this Mark Buchanan guy, and this kind of name got thrown around. Oh yeah, Mark Buchanan, Mark Buchanan. I was thinking, who the fuck's this Mark Buchanan guy I keep hearing of? Just through, obviously, we've got mutual connections. Wasn't all bad. So it was... this name kept popping up, and then I realised you were delivering pizzas for a very, very, very good friend of mine, Sammy, at Sammy's. Shout out Sammy's Takeaway, good chicken wraps.
Yeah.
What's your Sammy's order?
So mine at the minute is...
at the minute.
So I've gone through, because I generally don't order pizzas anymore. They do really good pizzas. So mine is a chicken and lamb wrap.
Nice.
Because I like the variation in the taste.
Nice. Yeah, so... I started hearing about your name when you were delivering pizzas for Sammy. Was that during lockdown or around lockdown time?
No, so I started this business in August, September 22, and it was then. So basically, because when I started, so that's the other thing, it was a massive gamble to start this business. So I left Purple Bricks and like 55 grand a year to start a business where I got nothing. I didn't get paid anything for 4 months.
Yeah.
With no income coming in.
Is that because you weren't selling houses?
Yeah, so
because it's commission based.
Yeah, so it's like obviously with Purple Bricks, the way that worked, basically, I listed a house, I got paid the following month. So I got paid to list houses, not sell them, which is why I think that model's flawed. Because, like, unless you care like me, like some agents might be like, I don't care if they sell or not because I got paid. And so I don't think that model's right, which is probably why there were loads of debt and got bought out. Anyway, it's another story. So the nature of obviously normally selling houses, you list a house, you find a buyer. Well, firstly, you've got to find the house, list it, find a buyer, and then the sales process takes usually between 8 and 12 weeks, and then you get paid. So that was like 4 months, and I was thinking, well, during that time, like, we'll be fine. I tried to tell myself it'll be all right. I was like, I don't actually know how we're going to pay bills. And I went in, because I always used to go into Sam's for food. And I went in, I think it was actually it was in October in 2020. And I was like, are you looking for any drivers? He said, oh, right, do you know someone? I said, yeah, me. So then I think I started in there the week after. I think I did 3 or 4 nights.
A week?
A week, yeah. So again, back to having 2 jobs, whilst obviously setting this business up.
Selling houses through the day, selling pizzas in the evening.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think I did like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'd work all day on my business, then go and deliver pizzas. But while I was like delivering pizzas, I still answered my phone, forward. And this was at the time when Julie wasn't helping me. So it was literally, I was the business. And I did that for 9 months, way longer than I needed to. So the first time I got paid, so I started the business in August. First time I got paid was December. Excuse me. So you've got to think, like, obviously during that time, I got bills to pay and stuff like that. So that was a dead stressful
You were losing
time.
money, really, to a degree.
Yeah. So by delivering pizzas, that helped pay the bills. So I didn't have to worry so much. Because at the time as well, we got tax credits. So we had tax credits because our income was always low. We got tax credits to kind of help. So that topped up with like pizza money, helped kind of cover some of our costs, and that took the pressure off. But yeah, I did it for 9 months, way longer than I needed to because I quite enjoyed it. It was a good crack. It got us out. I was going to say it got us out of the house. I was always out of the house working. But, it took that pressure off. And it got to the point that the reason I stopped wasn't because I was like, I'd had enough of it. Because business was getting busier and literally it was just me. I had 25 phone calls one Friday night between 5 and 7. And for the most part, I'd answer them. But then I was sat outside somebody's house with a pizza in the boot of my car, going cold, while someone was on the phone. It was an offer on a property or something like that I was dealing with. And then I got back to the shop. I said, Sam, I can't do this anymore. And I'd already mentioned it a couple of weeks before. And I was like, my business is getting too busy and it's not fair on your customers that pizzas are going cold. And yeah, so 9 months. So I think it was June, something like that, June or July. But by that point, I think I was banking like at least $5,000 a month through my business. But that took that kind of pressure off. And then obviously by not working there, it gives us that time of a night to then put into my business and kind of grow a bit faster.
Yeah, good. So let's continue from there. Then you were delivering pizzas. You managed to kind of jack that in because you were getting too busy with the selling the houses. Year one, kind of selling houses, like struggles, lifestyle. Obviously, you've now got to the point where you can drop that second job, go all in. What's life like then?
One of the reasons I kept doing it because I worried that, so I delivered pizzas for longer because I worried that the business would kind of disappear, and it was that fear. But then it allowed me to just focus wholly on the business. It got to the point where not long after that, I asked Julie to leave her job and come and join us because I was that busy. So I think she joined me probably like a couple of weeks later. So that was like around kind of July 21. And then, during that time, we just pushed on with the business. Life. So whilst we was doing it, I kept thinking like, I'm really grateful that I'm doing something that I really love. I could choose when I want to work, and I felt like I had loads of flexibility and stuff like that. And then obviously things just kept kind of growing, and I'd constantly like pinch myself thinking like, I can't believe this is actually growing as fast as it is. Because when I was at Purple Bricks, obviously the business is Purple Bricks, even though like I was the face of it locally, but they provide all the marketing and stuff. So obviously on my own, I had to find all the properties myself. But it was crazy. So we've gone from I think $55,000 a year to month 13. So just after 12 months, I think I got paid $23,000 in that 1 month.
Class.
And yeah, all that time, I'd constantly like folk are paying me like normal fees to sell houses, not like a reduced fee, and then I'd get paid like 200 quid to sell a house, which is why I had to work my ass off because 200 quid isn't really a lot of money. So yeah, that full, especially the first 12 months, even maybe 18 months, was totally like mind blowing that because it grew really fast. We sold loads of houses that other agents had struggled with. We sold them in like days. So we become known to be the person that provides the best marketing, sells houses faster than anyone else. And that's the part that I capitalised on.
Cool.
And pushed that to grow to kind of where we are now.
What's the tip, key? What's the secret? Why do you sell houses faster than anyone else?
Well, when I started, I had two goals, like two main goals, and it was to provide the best marketing, because ultimately that is what gets the most interest in the property, and it's what then gets people through the door and leads to the best offer. So we sell properties for the highest percentage of the asking price compared to any other local agent. Since I started, So all the agents marketing, I don't know if you pay
I know
attention.
now.
So if you pay attention to Rightmove, you'll notice that other agents' marketing's changed. One particular agent's copied everything that I do, even so much as like the software that you use and stuff like that. But ultimately, it's a benefit for like house owners in West Cumbria, because the marketing across the board has improved, because people have looked and realised that what I was doing was way better than what they were doing. So they've had to then kind of up their game. And there's only one or two agents that the marketing's not as great, and one of them closed down locally because it comes down to the marketing. So that was my first goal, and the other part was to provide the best service for clients. So we provide like a more of a personal service. So I'm available 7 days a week. Don't work office hours,
which I'm trying to put a stop on.
Yeah, so I am.
Stop, but you know.
Yeah, so that has helped grow the business, but it's also a detriment, I suppose, to my mental health, because I'm always kind of working. But it's ultimately the service, and we've got like, we've only got 5-star reviews, and the comment on those two things, the marketing that we've provided, has been great, but then the service that we've had a couple of people say that we've made them feel like theirs is the only house that we're selling.
Great.
I mean, we never intended to do with high volume of properties, but we've just kind of naturally grown that way. So to have that type of kind of feedback knows that we're doing something like right. I mean, even so much as like when we do viewings on properties, Julie was at a property the other day, and the girl was like, I just want to say, like, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much. And she's like, I'm just doing my job. And she'd had such a bad experience with other agents. And she named like one in particular and said, like, I want to find a house so I can just start slagging them off because they've been that bad. They've ruined the first time buyers. They said they've ruined the full experience. And like, I don't understand how a company can fuck stuff up so much. So it's just about providing like the best service to folk. And ultimately, it's the client that's at the center of everything. It's not about like us trying to make as much money or anything like that. It's about providing the best service, getting the best results for people. And as a result, that's where our business has grown from.
It is really, in the way I look at it, actions and consequences. You've improved the market and you've put the graft in. The consequence is be number one. You know what I mean? It's as simple as that, is the way I see it. What is the kind of industry like for estate agents? I know in the fitness world, and again, you mentioned there about like essentially what you've done is raise the game in West Cumbria or Cumbria.
Probably just West Cumbria.
You've raised the game because you've put the graft in, and everyone else has had to either up their game or fold. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't say that with myself in regards to the fitness kind of area. I like yourself, I do things a little bit differently. I've, like yourself, done it for a long time, and I like to think, I may be wrong, maybe just rubbing my own ego here, but I like to think I raise the game a little bit, and I'm constantly trying to push and improve. And as you said, it's only the clients that benefit, because other people have to raise their game or they don't end up doing it. And in my industry, most people don't even end up, like, let's say they start a personal trainer, even though I've moved more online and more self-development. Personal trainers don't even last 2 years because they just can't make it a career. So let's look at moving on to the beef, because I say beef in my industry, there's a lot of egos involved. There's a lot of, I say in my industry, online coaching, not so much more, probably more gyms, but the fitness industry in general, there's a lot of hate and like kind of calling each other out and all this sort of stuff. What's it like in the estate agent? Is there any, you scratch my back, I scratch your back, or is the all like every man for himself, dog eat dog?
It's a bit of a mix of both, really. So I've got like quite good relationships with a few like agents in the area. I mean, I've got an instruction, and it's come from another agent, but they're not local. And they said that like felt that I was the best person to kind of look after them. So it's not all like every man for himself, but there's then other agents that I want all the business, and I'm going to slag everybody off. Like, why would you use them? Because we do this better than them and stuff like that. And we get that. And the main gripe I've got is because our fees aren't the lowest, and that's intentional because we can't, because of the nature of the personal service we provide, we can't provide the best service and the lowest price at the same time, which really is obvious.
Yeah.
So we get comments from our clients that, oh, well, so-and-so was out and all they did was talk about you and slag you off rather than focus on what they did. And they'll say that you overcharge people and stuff like that. And ultimately, it's about us providing the best service. I only ever focus on myself. I try not to talk about any other agents because I focus on what we do and how we can help people to move on with like the property and stuff like that. Whereas other people seem to like, if they find out that we've gone, they'll do anything they can to slag us off. And to the point where I've got a client, they decided for me to market the house before this other agent had gone to the phone and cancelled the appointment. And they kept putting her on hold while they spoke to the boss. And ultimately, it was like this conversation in broken bits where they kept going back and forth. That's like, why are you going on with them? We're cheaper than them, and stuff like that, to the point where she felt really uncomfortable and didn't want to buy a house through them. And I've heard it loads. And I think if people just focus on their own service, their own like business, they'll do far better than just calling out the opposition.
100%. You mentioned before about another agent, obviously, like even copying you and copying everything and even changing software. And I've experienced that myself, people copying exactly what I do. And it's a little frustrating, isn't it, when you put the graft in to come up with the ideas and then you see it kind of being ripped off elsewhere. But at the same time, the way I look at it is they'll only ever be a shitter version of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think that's kind of how it is now. Because the part that they don't realise is one of the reasons that we're successful is because of me. Because of the service that I provide and the nature, I suppose, my personality and stuff like that. And they don't have that. I mean, they might have good people working for them, but that's kind of one of the things. But yeah, I just find it kind of really frustrating. And like, imitation's the best form of flattery, which is fucking annoying.
Yeah, definitely. What's the most expensive house you've ever sold?
Most expensive to date is 650,000. So it's the most expensive house that was in Buchanan.
Oh, yeah.
Really nice house. I think it was 6-bed. They built it themselves. It was kind of upside down with this big open plan living space on the top floor. And then it had 2 bedrooms on that floor, 4 bedrooms, all en suite downstairs that they'd used more like Airbnb type things.
Yeah, cool.
Had power cables right above the top. So the advert said it's a great location unless you're part of the Kite Flying Association. Might not be for you. Sold that in 2 weeks to a cash buyer.
Class. How much commission did you earn on that yourself?
So on that one, my fees have changed since then. So I think it was $6,500. But a lot of effort and time, because people think, oh, it's just a case of putting it on Rightmove, and it's not. It's about obviously getting the marketing right, the time put into that. And I cover all the costs on that. It's quite expensive to get a property kind of ready. And then it's obviously finding the buyers, putting the, getting it from offer to accepted to completed. There's a lot of work that goes into that as well, and a lot of kind of stress. And I understand, like, a lot of people try and sell their house on Facebook, so try and save fees, but a good estate agent should be like a good accountant that after you've paid them, you end up better off. So obviously, accountant saves you money in tax. We get more money for the property through the marketing and the channels that we've kind of got, and take that stress away.
Yeah.
Because I know I've got one house that we've not long sold. They had listed their last house, but they'd already had an offer on it before I listed it. And then they did finally sell their house, so they just dealt with it privately. And when they come to sell this to them, I said, I'm not doing that again. It was a nightmare. It all got a bit kind of personal in the end. And I think that's the thing. You don't have that like middleman to kind of keep things like, take the personal.
Professional, I guess.
Yeah. Take that part out so they keep it professional. And yeah, I just think it could be a nightmare.
Yeah, sure.
So
let's move on to an average day. What does an average day look like for you now? You're being so busy.
So I get up at 5:15, go to the gym for 6, back home for like 7:30ish. Quickly take the dogs out, try and get into the office as early as I can. Before that, learn Spanish. So I've been learning Spanish now I'm almost at 1,000-day streak.
Yeah, class.
So, and then I try and do 3 appointments a day. So whether that's like valuations of photos. Excuse me, these last couple of weeks. So we had a week on holiday. So during that week, obviously, I can book anything into my diary. And then Ashley, she had a week off. So my diary for the last 2 weeks has been absolutely hectic. So up to like 6 appointments. So, but normally I do like 3 appointments between sort of 10 and 3. Then all the work that goes into getting adverts ready and stuff like that, dealing with calls, and then basically work up until I'm trying to finish like a normal time, but like this last couple of weeks have been like horrendous. So sometimes I've been finishing at like 10:15, 10 o'clock at night when I've started at 8:30. So I try and finish it like probably about 7. It gives me enough time to have a little bit of downtime before kind of going to bed. So yeah, days are full on. And then the other part that we do is help support other agents. So show other agents what based out like I've done to build a business, and then we get kind of paid for that as well. So it's another income stream really. So that's just a side part of the business, but it's part that I don't focus on enough because we're so busy just obviously with the kind of day job of selling houses.
Yeah, cool. Jumping on the training comment then. So obviously in the past you were drinking, you weren't training. Now obviously working with you, I know you train 5-6 days a week, every week. And that's something which you, from where I sit, you probably couldn't stop. I know on our last call I said to you, if I asked you to stop, you wouldn't want to. So you've got to the point of, well, from training every now and again to not stopping and being very consistent. It's who you are now. How much does that play a part in becoming successful?
I know there's folk that are successful that are really unhealthy and out of shape and stuff like that. But for me, like go to the gym, so I'll train Monday to Friday, and then I'll do high rocks on a Saturday. And that, as well as feeling fit and healthy, it's good for your mental health. It's that, like, I really like it because I work so much. That is my time. So that rather than like at the end of the day sitting and watch telly, I get up early and I train, and so I don't mind so much working all day because that is the part that I switch off, and I put that like effort into like working hard, and I come out feeling like I've achieved something. But as I say, there's folk that I know that don't train and they still really look so successful. So it's not like a prerequisite, but at the same time, like I know, like I could sacrifice my time to earn money, but then I'm going to sacrifice money for my health to try and get it back. But I think by doing what I'm doing now, it sets us up for the day, and I'll get to the point where I can retire without thinking, shit, my health is absolutely shocking. And I'm going to have to now try and work out how to get in shape, to enjoy the fact that I've got money in the bank, time on my hands, and I don't want to die early.
Yeah, totally. I see it time and time again, and even a new client on last Friday came in and he's self-employed, and we talked about how he has been down the route of, like I had as well, running a business and then your mental and physical health declining, but he now kind of sees it like you do and I do in regards to training and staying physically and mentally in shape actually benefits business. And it's like kind of almost part of work, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So I'd advocate to anyone that, especially if they're running their own business, to get some fitness in first. Because I think it's good for your mental health, probably your energy levels as well. So I think if I wasn't training, especially if I was back in the drinking days, I'd just be tired all the time and I wouldn't really be focused. I wouldn't work as hard. So it probably helps with like mental clarity, focus, and just overall feeling better, which then I can put into my business and work harder.
Emotional stability as well, isn't it? And kind of regulate and generally how you feel. Because if you were overworked, like to a degree, somewhat, someone would say you are. You'd probably say you are sometimes as well. But then if you weren't training on top and you didn't have that kind of release almost and that time to yourself and that dialing in the focus, then I'd presume your work efficiency would drop.
Yeah, because I can imagine. So if I didn't train, but if I still work the hours that I work without the training, like I think I'd be mega stressed. My mental health would be shit because I would probably just think I've got nothing in my life apart from work, and I'm just focused on that. And I probably wouldn't be as productive because I'm not enjoying it. And don't get us wrong, there's times especially this past couple of weeks, where I've not enjoyed it because I'm just too busy. But without that, like, training at the start of the day, that sets my head right. And then I'm fine for the rest of the day, and I'm focused. Because, as I say, I could just not do it and sit and watch telly overnight and stuff, and that would be the de-stressing part. But and I could train at the other end of the day, so I could finish work and then do it. But because I know I'm so busy, I'd use work as an excuse to not train.
Would you?
No, as a result, I haven't been to karate for about 6 months because I'm too busy.
Yeah.
If karate was on at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'd probably go.
Yeah, cool. So wrapping up then and coming towards the end, we've talked about the benefits there and all the kind of positives and everything else. Let's have a quick look at the drawbacks. You work a lot. You are stressed to a degree. What's the drawbacks? What kind of, for other people listening, what drawbacks does this type of lifestyle and how hard you work, what strains and challenges does that come with? What drawbacks does it come with?
Do you know, one of the things that I think about, and it's probably me thinking about how other people perceive what I've kind of created, like, it's all right for him. Or about, like, the money I earn or something like that. And it's like, people don't see, well, actually some people probably would. I went to a friend's house the other day, so I've known him for a long time, and it was his mum's house, and I went to, like, give her some advice on selling it. So when time comes, she wants me to sell it, and it was like I hadn't spoken to him properly for a while, and he was like, he knows that I've always worked multiple jobs, and he knows the graft that I've put in, and he probably knows the struggle that I've had, and he said, like, nobody deserves it more than I do. So from that point of view, for folk to be really supportive, and I get that more than people like, it's all right for him, but that's in my back of my mind, and that's kind of really good. But, like, what people don't see is that, if they don't know us that well, the amount of hours that I work, the fact that to an extent it's all consuming. I'm really grateful because I absolutely love it, and if I didn't, it would be really hard work. And I suppose I've got the benefit that I work with my wife, which for some people that could be an absolute disaster, and, like, marriage would be over because we'd be fighting and stuff like that. But I think I don't know, it's probably quite strange because we get on and work really well, and, like, we'll have arguments and stuff like that, and, like, she'll call me a dickhead, I'll call her a bitch, and that's about it. And but for the most part, we just work together really well, and we've obviously created this thing. But I suppose the downsides is that it's then quite hard to switch off. And I think if you're self-employed, whatever your business is, you're probably going to be finding it hard to switch off because it's I suppose your life. But obviously, when you've got a family, I probably don't have as much time for them as I should, because, again, I find it hard to switch off. I think, I've got to do this, and so it's trying to get that balance, especially when like, you work as many hours as I do. It's trying to get that balance between not having it consume your entire life and still making time for, like, the stuff that's important, the reason why you're doing it, to give, like, your family, like, that nice life. This
is obviously what we've been working on a lot recently, isn't it? Trying to get that kind of fun element and being able to switch off and re-energize mentally, so it's life isn't just all work. But at the same time, would you agree that to, be able to turn over 400 grand a year and take home X, Y, and Z and sell and be number one in the globally of selling houses and stuff like that, you can't have balance?
No, and, like, I know, like, because I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and especially with the self-employed, like, estate agents, one of the things that's portrayed a lot is, like, pushing, like, the work-life balance. Get a work-life balance because you can choose your own hours, but to an extent it's bullshit, because, like, you can't, and I never joined because I wanted a good work-life balance. I wanted money. That was the simple kind of part of it. But it is really hard to have that balance. And because you're self-employed, you can pick and choose your own hours, so you're in control of it a little bit. And I could turn business away and say, sorry, I'm fully booked until where we're at now. So in May, I said, fully booked until, like, sometime in June. If you want to wait, that's fine. But getting that balance is really hard. I think we're now at the point, because we've been going for a while, we're quite fortunate that we can now bring other folk in, and it's trying to not wear every single hat. It's like delegate and stuff. But I think you've got to get to a point before you can do that. I don't think you can start. If anyone's want to start a successful business thinking they can do it part-time and having this work-life balance, they're going to be
cuckoo land.
Yeah, they're just not going to succeed. You've got to put the graft in, create momentum, get to a point where you can, like, you've built something that will then still kind of grow as you can step back. And that's where I am now. It's about bringing other people in to share the workload while still maintaining like a business that we've got now and the income we've got, if not growing it.
Yeah, cool. And then last topic then, is it true that behind every successful man there's an even more successful woman, or whatever the phrase is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so me and Julie, we've been together now 22 years almost, and Julie's been working with me. So she worked with me when I was at Purple Bricks. She did some of my admin there. And I couldn't do this without Julie. So I think, especially the volume of work that I do, if she had another job working somewhere else, and then I was doing what I'm doing, I think our relationship would probably have ended a while ago, because we'd be pulling in opposite directions. So I think because we're working together, and we like saying before the podcast, like, we very often, like probably 2 or 3 times a week, we talk about obviously the struggles that we've had and where we are now and what we've created. And I think we'll always be truly grateful for what we've managed to achieve over like the past few years, and like the excitement for like the future of how it's going to grow. But yeah, without Julie's support, I couldn't have got to where I am now.
Class. Shout out, Julie. Last question. We've been talking about success, and I've specifically mentioned traditional success. What is your view on success and or being successful? What's that look like to you?
See, I think it's hard to think of myself as a success, but then given that, like, what we've created and the awards that we've won and stuff like that, I think it'd be hard to deny that we are like successful, at least. And I think because I'm not where I want to be at the minute. I've still, and I think we'll always have some form of goal to strive towards. Yeah. So I think it's the fact that, like, that it's that moving goalpost. So you're not successful till you hit that, and then that'll change. But I think for me, like, ultimately success is the fact that, like, we've now got, we're not stressing out about money. We've got a business that I don't do any form of lead generation, and business just kind of keeps coming in, and it's created like a fantastic lifestyle. So I think for me, that is my kind of level of success. The fact that we've got this nice lifestyle, a great business, and I suppose like a really good relationship with like my wife and kids.
Class. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. Is there anything you want to end on? Any? Well, obviously, I'll put all your contact details in the description. If someone's watching and they do want to sell a house or want to buy a house or anything like that, just get you on where?
Yeah, so probably easiest place is Facebook, because I've built pretty much my full business on Facebook. So it's Mark Buchanan Property Group, powered by EXP on Facebook. Instagram is The Real Mark Buchanan Property, I think it is. I did have just Mark Buchanan Property, and someone hacked my account.
Think that was another agent, or?
No, because he was trying to sell crypto or something like that, some form of scam. So they're probably the easiest places to get me. And obviously we've got our main website. If you just Google Mark Buchanan Estate Agent, it comes up on there. But so if anyone wants a house to sell, they can get in touch. If anybody's looking at starting their own estate agency, they can get in touch. Anybody wants to know any part of my journey, whether it's about alcohol-free, anything like that, I'm always happy to chat to people and share my experience.
Class. Cool. And on that note, we'll end there. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's one.